Mncwango. From here, it's 8:30. You hand over to honorable vessels up until 9:15. Thank you. That time ends at 8:30. He's starting now. And honorable vessels will take us from 8:30 to 9:15.
Well, thank you, Honorable Chairperson, honorable colleagues, and greetings to Honorable Minister Mncwango. I will not dwell much on the issue of the constitutionality of the directive of the minister to disband, because I believe that that point has actually sufficiently covered. And I do want to align myself with those who actually feel that the minister overstepped his actually constitutional authority on the matters of the police operations. But I do want to zoom in on the issue of the establishment of the PKTT. Not because I come from KwaZulu-Natal, but listening to the statement, which was actually made by the Honorable the State President when he was in Pietermaritzburg visiting the family of the deceased councillor there. He actually did not mince his words in saying that he feels that there has to be an intervention to address the political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. And then he put together the interministerial committee. Now, therefore, I'm not entirely happy when the minister keeps on saying PKTT was a national. It may have assumed that character later on, but it was ostensibly, established to deal with political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. Because of its success, then that is why it was roped in to go and assist in the Eastern Cape in relation to the matter that affected the developments in Fort Hare, and that is why a group of them were sent to Gauteng, which I will deal with later. So I wonder if the minister would have any any say to that the PKTT was established ostensibly to deal with political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. Would you agree with that, Honorable Minister?
I agree with that. It's a national political killings task team established to deal with issues that were emerging in KZN in 2018. And therefore the whole focus was in KZN.
Thank you. And it was actually established as a multidisciplinary task team, which actually included, among others, the NPA. Why? Because when the state president actually announced the establishment of the interministerial committee, he did not mention ministers by name. He actually constituted the IMC with ministries. He quoted the Ministry of Police, Ministry of Justice and Correctional Services, Ministry of State Security, etc. So, therefore, to me, it does not hold water, the argument which says that there is no longer any interministerial committee, because the seventh, parliament actually does not have any IMC. No, the president actually did not establish IMC based on individuals. He actually named ministers, and those ministries are still there and functioning. I think it was only incumbent upon the Minister of Police as chair of the IMC to actually convene the meeting of the IMC, which was constituted based on ministries, not individuals. And I put it to you, Honorable Minister, that there may have been a neglect of duty on that one. What would be your response on that?
My response is that there can't be neglect of duty, which is not there. There's no IMC in the seventh administration.
Okay, no, thanks. And I will also apologize, Minister, that yesterday, or I don't know whether it's today, you said you are now wearing Mncwanas and you're smelling Mncwanas, to quote you correctly. But I can't help but keep on, referring to his evidence in chief when I ask questions, because he's the person who made a clarion call on the 6th of July that landed us into where we are now. Mr. Mkhwanazi, or General Mkhwanazi, was very, very adamant in saying that the letter of establishing the PKTT was not written by the minister. And knowing the minister as I do, as you have correctly also confirmed earlier today, then I was taken aback, because I know that Mncwango has capacity to do things, including drafting that letter. But Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi insisted that no, Honorable Minister would not write that letter. But when I went through the bangles here, I came across a letter which was written to a certain Meriti Haas, to the minister. And if I were to quote some of the things that she said, in paragraph 1, she says, I request that you, meaning the minister, 1, instruct the National Commissioner of SAPS to immediately disband the irregularly constituted, unnecessary, and wasteful political killings task team. The use of the word disband immediately. Then one goes on to look at the letter that the minister has actually written, the directive of the minister. It also comes with the word immediately. Then I want to believe that that actually is what prompted Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, among other things, to believe that the minister actually did not write this letter. What would be your take on that, Honorable Mncwango?
There is no evidence whatsoever that that statement is based on. The letter was written by me at my home, and it was dispatched from my gadget. That statement was made doesn't mean that it is factual.
Well, thank you. I don't want to pursue that. But the fact is, this is Meriti House, and you know that we all know Meriti House, and we all know her role in the violence that actually took place, unfortunately, in our province. She always played a desktop kind of research, which actually did not help in resolving the conflict that, resulted in the death of so many people in that province. So I don't want, because she would be coming here, I don't want to say anything more about her. Safe to say that some of the families are still bleeding because of her role in the unnecessary conflict that actually occurred in KwaZulu-Natal. The IMC, Honorable Minister, kept on receiving reports, progress reports, that the PKTT was doing an excellent work up to the point where in 2023, I think they met for the last time. But in that letter of dissolution by the minister, the minister says the PKTT is adding no value to the operations of the South African police services in the country. I want to know where does the minister base that kind of conclusion when the reports tabled before the IMC, when the state president at some public engagement confirms that indeed the PKTT is doing a sterling work. Now the minister says it's adding no value in the police activities in South Africa. Why is that contradiction, Honorable Minister?
Honorable Member, I have throughout the day said I acknowledge that the work that the National Political Killings Task Team is a factor in the reduction of the killings in KwaZulu-Natal. And I repeat that as I do now, confirm that. But I'm saying we need to look at the context now, where we are. And it says no longer required, no longer in the context of the structure that is now there, in the context of reduction, in the context of reduced budget, in the context of murders throughout the country that police need to attend to using resources. So it was not just a statement in isolation of the context in which it was said.
But Minister, if, as you had correctly pointed out earlier, that the battlefield which actually had resulted in a lot of killings in this country, murders and so on, is in KwaZulu-Natal, why would you not be happy if the PKTT was doing, excellent work in KwaZulu-Natal, so that you could actually replicate what they are doing in KwaZulu-Natal in other provinces as well, and have a reference point of good work that the police are able to do in actually curbing the scourge of murders.
You definitely wouldn't have any resource to do that, to replicate it in the country, but you would be able, and you can be able to use the model. And in fact, I've been calling for a meeting. I wanted material, I wanted facts to meet the Minister of Justice because of a lot of complaints from police in relation to the work in the Department of Justice relating to prosecutors and magistrates and so on. We were wanting that. And so that the model is good of closer working relations between police and prosecution is a good model. And that is what you can replicate. But to say you can create a bigger or other political killings, and you do that on top of units like organized crime, units like serious and violent crimes, and then you build another structure, you will end up spending all the money on structures as opposed to fighting crime on the ground. It won't happen. You just don't have such resources. So the model, yes, but the structures you needed to reconfigure as they did, and I endorse that, and I go accordingly. That is what I thought would be the benefit from the experience of the national political killings task team.
Part of what actually influenced your decision to disband PKTT were comments made by Patricia Mashile. Who is that? Somewhere she is actually mentioned as a whistleblower. But if you go through her postings, she comes across as a police informer. I mean, who is Mashile, Honorable Minister?
Yes. As to who she is, I did say that I wanted to get to know more about her, and I did. It's not to say that I was merely mentioning in the affidavit that there were certain things that she wrote, and not to say that they were deciding factors, those things. I just said I noted what she wrote, but there were other factors, and there are other factors. So I don't think that we can elevate her role as a decisive factor in the letter.
Part of what actually, prompted Lieutenant General Mncwango to cry foul on the disbandment of the PKTT actually is also to be traced in the evidence statement which was made by Brigadier Kunene, where he actually says that on the 6th of December, they were part of a group of detectives coming from Gauteng and others from KwaZulu-Natal to assist the Gauteng group that went to actually see Matlala at his place. Now, they feel that immediately after that, a plan was hatched to actually dissolve the PKTT because presumably it was beginning to tread where angels fear. And as a consequence of that, the letter of the directive of the 31st of December 2024 emerged. But they they feel it strongly that it actually emanated from their, meeting with Matlala with a view to actually investigate his involvement in the criminal activities in Gauteng. They suspect that triggered actually the directive. Would that be a fair conclusion on their part?
Not at all. Not at all. There's no correlation between what police did in Matlala's home or to him with the decision or the directive. Nothing at all. I don't know anything about criminal syndicates. I don't know anything about any meeting that would have taken place anywhere involving or not involving SBIA. If there's something that hints on SBIA and whatever intention, let the law take its course. But there's no link between whatever happened and the directives. In fact, I'm not even sure whether there's anyone in police who came to brief me about what happened on the 6th. I don't remember getting any briefing. And therefore, there's absolutely no correlation. But also, to say so is not backed by facts, because those cases that you are referring to, this one being one of the three, were being dealt with by police in Gauteng. And the National Political Killings Task Team came to assist at some other point, at some stage. Now, if you really were taking exception on the activities of police in relation to the arrests that police were making, then you were misdirected if you write a directive that doesn't have organized crime in Gauteng, but instead has a National Political Killings Task Team who were assisting, and 10 of them. It doesn't correlate from where I sit, not at all related.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. When the National Commissioner was here leading his evidence, he actually expressed grave concern that the minister did not consult with him when he actually issued the directive to disband. Equally so, Lieutenant General Mncwango felt very strongly that he ought to have been consulted as a provincial commissioner about the disbandment. The National Commissioner even said that on the 27th of December, he wrote to the minister asking for the annual leave, which was granted. The following day, the 28th of December, he was with the minister at his Kawini at the burial of one police officer. The minister did not indicate any inclination or any intention to dissolve the PKTT. And on the 30th of December, the National Commissioner goes on leave. And on the 31st of December, the minister actually writes this directive, and he sends it at 20 minutes past 5 to the offices of the National Commissioner. Now, I strongly also feel that there was lack of consultation here. And General Khumalo, who was actually given a direct responsibility to lead this task team, also was not consulted. Now, I just cannot figure out why the minister actually feel that he did not need to consult all of these people. Would it be okay to think that no, this was the minister's calculated move to exploit the situation where the national commissioner was on leave? So that was why he actually even used the term disband immediately, so that by the time he comes back and finds out that the PKTT actually had been disbanded. So ngolimi oluqondile ngathiwa uminister omlalela uNyendlu national commissioner. Some people might think that the minister actually waylaid the national commissioner, using the opportunity whilst the national commissioner was out on leave. How would you respond to that, Mr. Min?
Not at all, Pangazit. Angulalanga uNyendlu. I didn't waylay him, as I've related repeatedly, that it wasn't a calculated move, as you say. Not at all, not opportunistic, not at anything. It was just a culmination of processing of thoughts, as I related in terms of earlier dates. But I would want you to note that statements were made on the 1st and the 22nd of November on the matter. Myself and the National Commissioner on the need to review. Yes, on the actual culmination of those processes, when I wrote, I didn't consult the National Commissioner. I admit to that, but I do also admit that there was indication that this was not an act of switching off like lights in a room. We were going to have discussions later on, and that there were a number of factors that contributed in me reaching that decision. But it was not because I was waiting for the National Commissioner to leave for any reason, because we were discussing with the National Commissioner open and we had good relations, and it just happened the way it happened, but no waylaying whatsoever.
But Honourable Minister, there was an acting National Commissioner in office at that time, Lieutenant General Musikili, and she does not appear anywhere in the picture of all these happenings. Was not consulted. I'm not sure whether she saw this directive, because there is no mention being made anywhere in the statements of the role that she played as an acting commissioner in office at the time when this such a big decision was actually taken. Did the minister actually ever had any conversation with the acting national commissioner in the office at the time?
The instruction to the Chief of Staff was to direct the letter to the National Commissioner and to the acting National Commissioner, and that happened. I got confirmation thereof.
Minister, a lot has actually been said about the role of Mr. Brown Mogotsi. What is disturbing to most of us here is the access that he seemed to have in sensitive information in the in the office of the minister. He seemed to have privileges that even senior police, leadership actually do not have. Somewhere he is actually, Matlala was arrested and found with, cell phones in prison, and then they were confiscated. They were taken for digital, analysis, and it was discovered that, in fact, Matlala had been actually having conversation with Mogotsi. And in one of their conversations, he said, and I quote, "I have arranged a meeting for Sbia and the minister. They must have a solution." And he goes on, he says, "The task team that came to your house and harassed you have been dissolved. They got the letter on Monday. As we speak, they are bringing all dockets to Sbia." This is Mogotsi talking about things that actually had not even happened, some of them. And this is the conversation which is said to have taken place on the 1st of January, if I'm not mistaken. Now, this is this Mogotsi. And he goes on to pick up the phone and tell Lieutenant General Mncwango that, look, Mr. Mncwango, your PKTT has actually been dissolved. And Lieutenant General Mncwango is hearing that for the first time through Mogotsi, not from the minister, not from the national commissioner to whom he reports, but from Mogotsi, an outsider, a free man, a civilian. Now, how is it possible that Mogotsi has access to this kind of information, Honorable Minister?
Honorable Mncwango, I have indicated that there is noticeable change in Mogotsi's conduct and behavior, which is very concerning, which I wasn't aware of before. How he relates to who and so on. For the best part of our interaction, it was just not contaminated with anything, I would say, or maybe say that I was aware of. I've only become aware now that there are commissions and so on, especially the Mncwango Commission, where these WhatsApp were read and so on, that I got to know the rest of his doings and relations with other people that all the time had never been mentioned in our conversations with him, not once. Now, and I've said it raises concerns, and once you become aware of that, you are bound to take certain decisions, even review such relations, because I don't want to have whatever relations with people or a person who's this questionable. I've never done, it has never happened before, and so on. And therefore, the fact that he came up with WhatsApp, with a WhatsApp to General Mncwango is indicating that he is aware, he has a letter and all of that. I wouldn't be able to say exactly until I'm through with what I'm trying to check as to what actually happened in terms of how he got to be in possession of the letter. And therefore, I would say that it's a concerning matter, register it as such. I wouldn't have expected that that would happen that particular way. But it is important to emphasize that there's not a piece of any document that I ever gave to Mogotsi or sent anyone to give Mogotsi that document or any document whatsoever. It has never happened. It has never happened.
Mogotsi actually goes on to fundraise for what Mkhwanazi in his chief evidence fundraise for the minister's associates. He fundraised 38,000 rand, which he got from Matlala, to, among other things, pay for the transport and accommodation of, quote unquote, the minister's associates. And organized even a dinner, which was actually attended by, among others, Lieutenant General Spear. He agreed to that. He even shared with us that at the end of that dinner, Mogotsi simply disappeared without paying the bill. And General Spear, ended up actually footing the bill. That surely cannot be the actions of an ordinary comrade. Honorable Minister, Mogotsi is, through his actions, comes across as more than just an ordinary comrade to the minister. How are we going to deal with that?
No, firstly, I share the concerns that Honorable Malema was articulating, and I share the concerns that you are articulating. That he rather has a conduct and a behavior as you relate. And I do confirm that I only came to know about all these activities now. And as you see, they are all close to each other in terms of, they are not related to something like 2018 or 2020. I never heard anything about his behavior and his conduct. So I only get to know about all these things now. Now, what are you going to do about it? Review that, because that is not something I must take and I would have taken for granted, or I would take for granted, that I have somebody interacting with them who are said to be involved in all these kind of activities, as is getting revealed at the moment, as you indicate. It just can't. That is what I'm going to do, review this and so
on. Let's come to Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. When he was here, he said he actually had knocked at every door, actually looking for an ear that could actually listen to him, because he was gravely concerned about the goings on within the police service. He said he wrote to the minister. He sent a message, actually pleading for a meeting with the minister in order for him to actually discuss the issues that affected the work of the South African Police Service. But his pleas for a meeting actually fell on deaf ear insofar as the minister is concerned. And that prompted him to even write to the portfolio committee, asking the chairperson of the portfolio committee to please invite him so that he could share with the portfolio committee the problems that they are facing, because the minister would not actually, grant him that opportunity. In fact, you considered yesterday that yes, you did receive that request from Mr. Mkhwanazi, but you did not see it, necessary to meet with him, especially because in his message, he said he was going to talk about issues that affect his work and his family. Now, why, Honorable Minister, would you not give Mkhwanazi an opportunity to meet with you?
Firstly, I do need to put it clear that I never read anything in the WhatsApp about the National Political Killings Task Team. And I never had an impression that we were going to discuss that. It's not mentioned in the WhatsApp. What is mentioned is him, General Mkhwanazi, and family. 2, it mentions internal matters to SAPS as an organization. And those matters, I couldn't figure out how Mogotsi would feature in that. But thirdly, I thought that it wouldn't be proper for me to call such a meeting with that a kind of people and to discuss, even if it were to be internal matters to SAPS. I wouldn't do that as a matter of principle, call Mogotsi to be part of that, because he's not part of SAPS. Now, it's not like I ignored the letter. Instead of that, I decided that the meeting would take another form, or the proposal would take another form that it took. National Commissioner and Deputy National Commissioner, and then Deputy National Commissioner and General Mkhwanazi, to try and have them to talk because of concerns that are there. The kind of rift that is there involving those personalities. So therefore, it's not necessarily true that I ignored the request for a meeting to discuss National Political Killings Task Team, because it was not indicated there.
Well, thanks, Honourable Minister. But I find it very, very, very concerning that a provincial commissioner of the province that is plagued by political killings, for which a PKTT had been established to deal with, he wants to meet with the minister to discuss internal operations. And he's denied that, because the minister responded by saying, acknowledging the message was received, saying that the message was received, will revert at some point, and has never reverted. And that point had not come up to this day. Now, I was a bit concerned about that. Now,
but I do want to come back on that to say I didn't see that meeting taking place in that shape. I couldn't see it. So I think, and that I decided that it would take another form, and that there was no mention of a political killings task team. But I did indicate to General Mkhwanazi that, well, I still owe you a meeting, not in that form, although I didn't explain it that way. I was thinking of meeting him alone to say what is the issue on yourself and family, so that I understand the angle. What are the internal matters, so that I understand the angle and why Brown Mogotsi would need to be there. I didn't understand those matters at all, and therefore I didn't see my way as said.
The National Commissioner, when he was here, Honorable Minister, he bemoaned the fact that the minister would also not grant him the opportunity to report on the activities of the PKTT, because he felt that the minister's directive was not based on facts, because he, as National Commissioner, had not actually had any opportunity to present the progress report of the PKTT. And he recounted instances where he had actually wanted to give the minister, the progress report, but in vain. And ultimately, he even came up with a plan, because he felt that the dissolution of the PKTT could not actually be done overnight. It had to be a phased out winding down of its operation. So he came up with a plan. And he says at the Cape Town meeting, the minister was in principle agreeable to the plan, subject to minor changes there, here and there. But at the subsequent meeting, the minister actually was no longer interested in that. And he said what was established through political intervention will actually be dissolved through political intervention. So he was no longer interested. And the National Commissioner was actually frustrated. Why that attitude, Honorable Minister?
Oh, sorry. Not at all. The only issue on the 27th of March in Pretoria was that we had agreed that there wouldn't be any additional docket on the work of the National Political Killings Task Team. And when we arrived there, there was now one case more. And we were then saying, how has it happened that you have added instead of winding down? That was the only issue. That was the only issue. No other issue. If there was, it wouldn't have changed the agreement that we had made on the 6th, that fine, this is the way, phased approach, and so on. It was a good proposal with minor things, as I say. They were still minor on the 27th, but that was the only issue. And I don't think we should exaggerate any other matter or any other issue that form part of the discussion. So this decision still stood, or the agreement that that was the correct approach. There was no problem. I did, however, hear when I saw the commission or the ad hoc committee that National Commissioner was saying, I was quite angry. I wasn't. The issue was on the commission, Madlanga Commission. The issue was, why add an issue after having agreed another docket? And it wasn't being against police working and arresting. It had nothing to do with the act of arresting. That was a good job. I even went to the funeral of that councillor. It was well done by police. But it was now different because it was there was that case. It would have needed to be explained, just explained that, look, there's this and this that happened, but we're sticking to the agreement and the process. There's no problem. So it shouldn't be exaggerated.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The issue of the public trust in the operations of the police, it's undoubtedly has a deficit now, because what comes out of this process is playing out negatively in the public domain out there. So there is a great deal of work that would need to be done to restore that public trust in the operations of the police, because they need public trust. I'm not sure whether it's fair to ask the minister how he hopes to actually restore that kind of public trust, because it has eroded. The fact is, it has eroded. And the second concern is that I just pray that out there, the minister should not come across as leading a faction within the police service. The minister would actually need to work very hard to be seen to be above all these, quarrels and activities, and also be seen to be mobilizing whatever resources that are there to actually quell this kind of, instability within the police service, because it's not helping to create trust in the operations of the police. What would be your take, Honorable Minister, on that?
I agree with you entirely, Honorable Member. And I don't know where this faction-like kind of situation in the top brass of SAPS, where it comes from. All I can say is that when I came, it seems to have been there already, not that it got created after I arrived. It may not have been showing, but it was there, seemingly. And that's why, among other things, I called a meeting with National Commissioner and Deputy National Commissioner. There could be some root cause in the past, whatever it is. Now, I have put on record that when National Commissioner briefed me about the investigation on Sibia, I supported it. It was not to prove that I'm not aligned to anyone, but it was a matter of principle that if he has done something unlawful, he needs to be pursued. He needs to be pursued. The same actually with regard to General Khan. When I got the report that said he is also being investigated from National Commissioner, I said I support that, because if he had done something wrong, he needed to be pursued. And therefore, I thought that that was demonstration enough, or partially a part of it when I came across that incident, that I had no special sympathy for anyone who found themselves on the wrong part of the law. It should take its course. So the perception, in fact, with National Commissioner, we discussed at some point that there was a rumor that I wanted to remove General Kumal and put General Khan and all of that. And I said that that's pure rumor. There's never been anything like that. And I saw no reason why such a thing would happen. And therefore, I would dispel that notion. But I do want to also say there needs to be much more seriousness in police in doing their work. 2 weeks before the media briefing by General Mncwango that he had convened, I had convened a meeting with National Commissioner and with crime intelligence. That included SBIA and included General Kumal and other people, I think 2 other people, which National Commissioner hardly attended except for the 10 minutes, came late and then left earlier. So I was with the 4 people or so who gave me a briefing for more than 2 hours on syndicates in the country. First, it was on drugs. It was the first and the only briefing I got elaborate on drugs, because I was worried, where do drugs come from and how do they get distributed and where, by who, and what routes and so on, because we wanted to get to the bottom of this. So they gave me that briefing, even though this other syndicate that is now being mentioned wasn't part of the briefing. I don't know why, but it wasn't part. But we went on to discuss firearms, illegal firearms in that meeting. Now, that is what I was interested in, to get us to do that work. I even asked, is National Commissioner aware of all these things that you are detailing to me? And they said yes. And I said, why has no action been taken? They couldn't give me an answer. I would have preferred that police at all levels busy themselves with crime prevention and crime investigations. But as human beings, I do take a point that they would cross each other's paths for some reason. It happens to organizations, but it is worrying. It is part of what then erodes confidence, because they end up talking about each other, but mouthing each other and showing no unit. And that is worrying. But what you're saying is true, that there needs to be a lot of work that would need to be done to restore and to build up in terms of confidence to police from this situation. I agree.
Well, thanks, Honourable Minister. My last point is in relation to the admission which was actually made here by Lieutenant General Spear, to the effect that Mr. Matlala was a well-known character within the leadership of the police. He actually frequented the headquarters of the police, parading in the corridors there, moving in and out of offices, because he was a known character. But when we asked Spear, being the head of intelligence, did you have, the kind of background information about Matlala? And then he said no. And now that Mr. Matlala is in prison, is in jail now for the allegations of murder, how does he feel about that? Now, I'm asking this, I'm sharing this with you, Honourable Minister, to indicate to you that no, our brothers in the leadership of the police must really help this country. They should not allow this country to go to the dogs because they are lax. How could someone actually parade up and down the corridors of the police, police headquarters, without being vetted, without whose background is not known? Now Matlala is in prison. How much does Matlala know about our crime prevention strategies that are actually, cooked up in those offices? Is it not a shame that all along they have actually been harboring a criminal in their offices? Now this brings me to the issue of Nkabinde. I'm not in any way saying that Nkabinde is a criminal. He has not done anything to that effect. But his role is very questionable. Because from where I'm seated, ilokho kuthiwa yixoki. Uthathe indaba ngapha kuminister azise kumkhwanazi, athathe indaba kumkhwanazi azise kuminister, ixoki lelo. He is actually setting you against each other. You know. Now that role is, cannot be acceptable to be played by a chief of staff in the office, in such an important office in the country. So I'm happy that the minister actually has said he's going to attend to those matters concerning Mr. Nkabinde, and I'm happy that he might actually come before us here, because he would need to explain a lot of other things. But Mncwango, the role of your chief of staff is, it leaves a lot of concern to all of us. I thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Honorable Minister, do you want to comment on the last remark that the Honorable Mncwango has made?
Of course, yes, I share the concern, because even if there is a perception which is negative, it tends to be expanded because it's a perception and it's negative. And therefore, it can't just be left. It needs to be addressed so that there is no doubt, even if it's not factual, that what is happening there is clean and untangled to anything. And therefore, these matters, including what, as I said, Honorable Malema was raising as concerns, I share them and will address them as such. But they shouldn't be taken as facts. For instance, what you're talking about, the issue of dinners and so on. I'm hearing about those things post-happening, and I really had nothing to do with them. But you then get to know about that behavior of people who are involved. I don't know even the people who were said to have been invited to dinner. It was the first time I even heard that Sbiya himself was part of the dinner. I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that, because no proposal, no approval, nothing. I just had nothing to do with that particular dinner. That is what I would want to submit. Thank you.
Honorable Vessels, are you ready to receive the flame? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good evening, Minister. Minister, with all due respect, I must admit that after these 3 days of your testimony, I'm not less confused. I'm more confused. And I don't think I'm the only one. So I'm going to revisit a few issues that has been interrogated and that you did speak to before, but I don't have concise clarity on a lot of it. Let me start with, you mentioned a few times the extensions that were not granted to the PKTT post 2022. And then you also gave evidence that prior to 2022, the extensions and how the extensions were granted. And if I understood you correctly, you said that those extensions were granted by the National Commissioner in consultation with the Minister of Police. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. Minister, now, if that is the case, did you have the power to extend it? To extend the PKTT?
The power.
Yeah. In your opinion, would you have been able to grant an extension?
Yes, if that was the procedure and that was required in terms of PFMA, I would have considered the matter.
But you say the National Commissioner had to grant the extension in consultation with the Minister.
Yes.
So not the Minister alone.
Pardon?
Not the Minister alone.
I suppose so, in terms of the extension.
Because that's what you said, that extensions
Yes.
were granted by the National Commissioner in
Yes.
consultation with the Minister. I would argue it was actually and should actually be after consultation with
Yes.
the Minister, because there's a big difference. But in any event, would you not, if you use that same logic, won't it then, can it be that it's acceptable that disbandment follows a different procedure? Shouldn't that also have been the National Commissioner that disbands in consultation with or after consultation with the Minister? How do you understand that?
I would say that we did hold a meeting on the 1st about the need to review, and on the 22nd. Let's put that aside. And that this process had been coming a long way, including in 2004, in 2024, when the implementation process got placed in the office of the National Commissioner to sign, which he only did a year later. Now, I imagine a situation, if that had happened in 2024, probably wouldn't be here. If that implementation of the structure, which would have replaced on time the National Political Killings Task Team, if that had taken place and not delayed, we wouldn't be here. Because that had been the view that was prevailing in SAPS, and they had worked for it, and they invested in it, and they came up with units that were gradually coming in. But when there was then a delay of a year, in particular from 2024 to 2025, then it put a delay to what would have happened in the manner that it was designed. But then to come to your question, whether it shouldn't have happened that way, let me just throw in something. At the back of my mind as well, when I wrote the directive, there was this thing that we would need to talk, would need to discuss, because it was not a fait accompli that saying you have now hit the wall. I understand the meaning of immediate. I understand that. But at the same time, I think everybody should understand that in the same directive, you call for a preliminary report. Say in the preliminary report, there was then a different idea. It still would have been a preliminary report put forward by the National Commissioner. Yes. In the other meeting that would follow after that, it still would. So it wasn't like disband, done, finished, no talk, nothing, no report, nothing.
Thank you, Minister.
It wasn't like that.
I'm going to interrupt you because I think you've made that point throughout your testimony, and you articulated that point well. the fact of the question is, when you wrote this directive, did you view it as a very drastic step? Was that your thought process, that I'm now taking a very drastic step?
I have this to share with you in response to you, that in police, there are certain things that you need to act on a little bit strong in the department if you want to get things done and done on time and correctly. Not so much different from any other department, but something that you need to show seriousness on, that it needs to be done, especially considering all the factors that I've put forward, including possibility that we might have been acting outside the PFMA. That is drastic on its own.
When did you become aware of the fact that those extensions were not granted?
Now, in the last 3 days that I spoke about in the year, after settling down, then over and above the information that I got at hand, this issue came in to say, look, there might be this particular problem, but I wasn't sure about it. It merely added on what I already had, and leading as an issue of concern was the manner in which we were using the budget. And vis-a-vis the tremendous pressure that we have, which I would want not to be, I would love that we don't lose sight of. Murders in South Africa are very high.
I think we all know that.
And other crimes, including drugs.
I understand that.
If you have something drastic that you need to do, don't spare any moment. Don't wait. Do that. So
Yes.
there was that kind of thing. That's why I even convened a meeting, just to express my deep concerns about this. And we shouldn't get used to murders at this rate. And we shouldn't get used to investigations on murders being categorized as normal for other people, requiring to be conducted in a normal, traditional, and then for other people, you then add speciality and so on. That is damaging.
I agree, Minister, but now the question is, I think a lot of people will say that it almost seems as if you made a decision on the 31st of December, and then afterwards, you try to find a lot of justification for that decision. It seems like that. Because you can't clearly state what you did about these concerns. Yes, you had the meetings. Yes, you had the meeting in November. But you didn't. If there is this completely illegal task team, according to your version now, that is contravening the PFMA, that is unauthorized expenditure, or irregular expenditure, however you want to put it, but you disband it. Rather than, if it doesn't exist, you can't disband it. Won't you agree with me? Because if it wasn't extended, as it should have been, it didn't exist. So why the need to disband it? Why didn't you act in a different way then? And won't you then say, because you did not, that it can be perceived as you looked for a lot of reasons now? You looked for the latest from Professor De Haas. You looked for the posts from Patricia. You looked for all these justifications. Maybe they're there, they were there, but you didn't act upon it. You only acted on the 31st of December. In, as you also agree, a very drastic step. What would you say to that?
No, I would say that not exactly. The issue of structures is an old one. of specialized units. It was there. I didn't look for it after. It was there. The issue of concerns, external concerns, were there, even at the portfolio committee. The issue of internal concerns started shortly after we got appointed, that were coming from some officers. It was there, but we didn't have a certain way of processing that, an easy way of processing that. It was something that we worked on. We had a meeting. We didn't discuss the details in terms of how to engage on the matter. It was left with me. So I then started grappling with those matters amidst a lot of other things. If there was anything that came after, yes, there were things like that came after, like the statistics that came on the 5th of March, that we had registered one fresh incident of political killing, like the fact that that was the reduction and the extent to which it had gone. So there were a number of, I would say, minor issues that came in, and so on, including the comments by CFO. But there were these fundamental things that were there, which I felt we needed to answer at some point or the other. It didn't crop up that that day would be the 31st of December. It just happened as I sat down and processed things quicker when I had settled. But these things were there. And I, to be honest, I didn't mean any ill about them. I just meant they just came in as things that need to be done to register some of the changes that are required. Remember that they included, as I said, border management, especially what is said to be happening at the airport. People are not vetted. With all the things that are happening, they're opening us to all the things that it's happening. Those matters are drastic, are serious matters requiring serious action.
Okay, let's accept that, Minister. Did Brown Mogotsi ever speak to you or correspond with you via whatever means with regards to the PKTT? Did he ever speak to you on this task team?
Is your question that did Brown talk to me about PKTT?
Correct.
Not at all.
Never.
No. Not that I can remember talking to. In fact, he never spoke to me. I never spoke to him about that.
Did General Sibiya ever come to speak to you about the PKTT in particular?
Not before.
Yeah, I'm talking about prior to 31st December.
Not before. It never happened. He couldn't have done so because where would he be getting the idea from? Because I didn't have the idea myself. So he couldn't come unless he would have come to make a proposal. And I'm saying nobody made a proposal like that to me. Not one. Now, the letters of Meridias, I noted those letters, but they are not the letters that instructed me to do that. I considered matters holistically and came to that conclusion.
Spoken a lot about your chief of staff, Mr. Nkambine. What was his posture on the PKTT? Did he ever advise you on the PKTT?
Oh, Spear.
No, Nkabinde.
Nkabinde? No, not at all. The only time he said something about PKTT was when we had the meeting on the 6th. And during that discussion, he raised his hand, and then I gave him the opportunity, and he made a remark, which is not something that he does frequently. Or regularly rather, and he made a comment. And my reading of his mind was that he was supporting me on this more than any other thing that I could have registered at that time.
Let's, for a brief moment, assume that that your version, Minister, is absolutely correct. That your intention and your motive to disband the PKTT was pure and makes sense and was sound. Why would the National Commissioner and General Mkhwanazi go as far as they are going currently? Why would there be a press conference? Why would they say that the motive is this correlation between the PKTT and organized crime and Matlala and all of that? If we assume that your version is the gospel truth, what would you think is their motive, their rationale for doing this?
I've tried to think hard about this. Why are they making a correlation about this? What is it that is concretely on the table? But I can't avoid looking at what they are saying exactly as a starting point. They are saying, as an allegation, in disbanding or in writing that directive of disbandment, I wanted to protect crime syndicates. Now, before that, 2 weeks ago, I'm thinking, and I started thinking immediately after I heard that, I wanted a list of drug syndicates or any other crime syndicate in the country, but I was more on drugs and firearms because I regarded that as very troubling. So I get the list per province. We're discussing, it's a confidential meeting, and a document is handed over to me. I ask questions, even asking where possibly these drugs come from. What is the composition of each of these drugs? Where do primary and secondary components come from and how? We discuss those matters in confidence. What routes for those that come from outside and who? And what do we have inside the country? So we're serious, we're discussing. Now, one, you note, there was no big five there, which means that the list was not exhaustive. That is the least I could say. Now, if I made this inquiry, and then after that, I circle with the directive to disband, why do people, or why does anyone, for that matter, come back to say, I am protecting crime syndicates? And how? And who is this? Because from where I sit, I didn't know that Mogotsi has a link with anyone when I wrote this. I had, even with Matlala, I had no idea because it had never been brought to me. So I sit and I write that. So when all of a sudden, I'm said to be doing this to protect syndicates. Now, it can't be true. Secondly, these matters were investigated by Gauteng, organized crime, and they moved and they arrested. They arrested people, even if others got arrested afterwards. So if you wanted to protect anyone, why would you go for people who are assisting and not deal with people who are being assisted, who are leading the charges, opposing bail and do all sorts of things. Why would you do that? It's awkward. The correlation, there's no logic. You can only do that if you start with the narrative and then you tell the story that fits the narrative. I have nothing to do with any kind of syndicate, whether in firearms, whether in drugs, anywhere. All I know is that they need to be dealt with. That is why, among other things, we say create a division that is dedicated to harder criminals in the form of the operations and so on. So that was the design, not what I get told now. I have no links with any syndicate.
I understand that, Minister, but why do you think they want to discredit you? What do you think their motive is?
Well, you, as I say, you look at what is being said. When you do that, and there's a person who says there will be fight back, the composition of which or the content of which I didn't have, I can't help but bring that as a factor. Is this it or is it not it? Especially when it comes as personalized. It comes as more spearheaded by, because honestly, despite what National Commissioner said, the trend, the developments showed that we were working together on the winding down, as he was suggesting. In other words, we were moving together. There was no indication whatsoever. Now, all of a sudden, there's a change. Now, I can't help it that, oh, okay, there is discussion. Because part of the conversation, as I heard it, was that if I were a national commissioner, I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't have agreed. It even causing me to think, what is personal in the National Political Killings Task Team to a point where you can actually take a personal kind of stance on it and even say, well, the other thing on crime intelligence and on border management were fine. It can go ahead, but this one, what is it that would cause someone to say so and to think that particular way? But on my side, I don't have anything that I know that would cause people to behave in that particular fashion, to be honest. And I don't have anything. And I have no syndicate grazing close to me and me grazing close to them whatsoever. And there's no evidence up to today that have anything to do with any syndicate, if they are, on any crime, whether it's drugs or any. There isn't, because I don't have any relations with any crime groupings and so on. I've never had. I can't suddenly develop that now.
Let's accept that version, and once again that your motives was well informed to give the direction to disband the PKTT. In hindsight, Minister, is there any possibility that you were being used to hamper or to protect these crime syndicates? In hindsight, can there be any possibility that people used you to disband the PKTT to protect organized crime?
And what is the exact question?
Question is there such a possibility if you now look back?
Any possibility of people saying so?
Of people that used you at that stage.
That in fact,
you thought you acted good. You thought you acted well informed. But actually people were using you like a pawn.
Oh, I see that the possibility of any grouping using me.
Yes, correct. To protect organized crime.
There is absolutely none that can claim that with any evidence. Once a statement, if a statement gets made somewhere, just like statements have been made that I was acting to protect, I can't prevent a statement from being made, but there is no evidence. And in fact, the reason why there's no evidence is because I didn't act on behalf of any criminal syndicate.
But unknowingly? Maybe you didn't know it.
And how? If you could make an example.
If someone played you, fed you with information for you to act in a certain way, drove you to the 31st of December decision.
I derive a lot of confidence that Gauteng organized crime were the ones that initiated investigations against these syndicates, if you call them syndicates, or criminals. They were doing that. Okay, that's one. Two, they moved on very well with their investigations and their arrest. And there's nothing until 10 people come into a system. And for some other reason or reasons, there is a directive. Now, if there was that intention and anybody could then want to say we're using him, why didn't they use me if there was that possibility before the directive? Why couldn't they say, hey, there's this development and let's use minister to stop whatever was happening with those that were being arrested, were being pursued, and so on? It can't be. And so I'm using those facts to respond to you. But I also use the fact that I know that there may be people who may have been claiming that they would want or wish. Part of that is when I was looking at the WhatsApps, if that were in the Mncwango Commission,
Yes.
where somebody would send a message as if there is something that has been discussed or can be discussed with you. For instance, after the cancellation of the tender, which I initiated, then somebody creates an impression that it's possible to come and talk to me about something about cancellation of the tender, about possibility of change. There was nothing such. There was no such. There would be no one who would have come to me about that. And how possible would it be? You initiate cancellation of the tender, and then somebody comes from somewhere and tells you something different. So I would find it hard that somebody could possibly be wanting or laboring under that impression that they could use me when I'm not one of them and I'm not involved in them. And I don't go anywhere where such people are if there is a talk like that.
That you know of, Minister, because you've said today that you didn't know of, for instance, Brown Mogotsi's association with Kat Maklala. But let's leave that there for now and let's go to the WhatsApp messages.
Yeah, I do want to respond and say, if that was Mogotsi's personal agenda or together with other people.
But exactly, that's my point. That's exactly my point.
If that was the agenda, I would say it never came to light before the letter of the directives. Never, because it was never discussed with me.
I understand that.
It must have been something they were nursing, if there was such.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think you must think about that.
Okay.
If you weren't may be being used exactly because of that. But let's go to the WhatsApp messages that you refer to now, and it's I think it's open in front of you there. It's in
Yes.
bundle 3 on page 80. If you go to that message that flows over to page 81, it was shown this morning on the screen as well, but you'll see that there's a response by you, and it's the message of the 26th of January that Mogotsi sends you, and it's the long message, and the end of the message, the last paragraph, reads, and you can see it there, also meeting with the DNC and COS, which I assume is the Chief of Staff, Cosman, today in Durban for finalization of the Khumalo and the General Mncwango matters. DNC is waiting for the COS here. This is very significant. Then you reply, Minister, by saying, don't unnecessarily. Don't unnecessarily. What does that mean?
Now, don't necessarily what?
No, that's what you wrote. I don't know. Look at the message, Minister. At the messages. Mogotsi sends you a message. You reply to the message. And your reply is, don't unnecessarily.
Now, I said Mogotsi would sometimes send you messages that you wouldn't understand.
And then you wouldn't reply. That's what you said.
And then?
Then you didn't reply. You previously said during your testimony.
Yes,
that he sent you
generally
messages, you
I
didn't
wouldn't
understand,
reply.
You wouldn't reply.
Generally, I wouldn't reply. But in some cases, I would have replied. That reply, I must have been wanting to say, don't necessarily send me all these things that are necessary, that I don't understand. But I didn't complete that for some reason. But I must have meant that because when I received it, I just couldn't make sense out of it myself at that time.
Minister, with due respect, it's very hard to believe that because we spoke a lot about tone last Friday, I think, or Thursday. Your tone during these, your testimony, you use a lot, you use the words necessary or unnecessary a lot. It's your type, it's how you speak, it's your tone. If you read that message, also meeting with the Deputy National Commissioner and the Chief of Staff today in Durban to finalize the Khumalo and the General Mncwango matters. And your reply is, don't unnecessarily. That seems like an answer to that message.
No. No, I didn't understand what he was talking about. I meant to say probably don't send me unnecessary message or something to that effect, because I didn't see what the purpose of that message and all these things that he was sending. I had no correlation of what they meant, and as a matter of fact, there was no such meeting. There were no such meetings. No such meetings ever took place, and therefore had no particular meaning of what he was trying to convey. And I meant to say all of this is not necessary. In other words, I don't even understand what it means and what it is sent for.
It seems very strange, but it's also very concerning, especially if one then. And it's hard not to connect the dots now. If one takes the message from Brown Mogotsi on the 1st of January to Kat Mklala, and you connect it to these messages, then it seems to form a picture. And usually the easiest answer is the correct answer. Life is not complicated. It's usually very simple. Yeah, let me leave it there. Let me ask one last question. Throughout all of this, and if one listens to the testimony by the National Commissioner, it's very clear that there's an irretrievable breakdown in your relationship with the National Commissioner. Although you said that you had a good relationship, it's very clear that currently you do not. Now, at this point in time. And if you were to be the Minister of Police again, if you are reinstated, how will you be able to work with the National Commissioner again?
How will I work with the National Commissioner?
After all of this?
What has happened right from the beginning when we started working, I expressed confidence to the National Commissioner, and we worked well. I learn now that while he was on one hand working in the manner that he did up to the 27th on the disbandment, National Commissioner may not have been genuinely committed. And in my view, he just needed to come forward and say, Minister, you wrote a directive. I have matters to discuss with you. Or he would have written a letter pouring out his own views or his own feelings. Now, without him writing back to me separately just on this and or engaging me on this, except through the process that I had indicated, I had no other way of knowing, getting to know that there were issues. Absolutely no other way. I was left with no option but to assume that we were together. Now, what do you do now that you know? It means that now that we know how that behavior, or that behavior is there needs to be a way of saying there should be one way of working. Don't turn right or don't indicate right and then turn left, because it doesn't help anyone to do so. If you indicate right, turn right. If you indicate left, indicate I would do the same, so that we are able to proceed with the work that we are supposed to do. That is my thinking at the moment about, that's my response to you on the matter.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Honorable Vessels. Honorable Minister, you know, South Africans can be very amazing. You know, today in social media, there is a montage which is circulating. The montage is made of 4 pictures. The one picture is the picture of me, which was taken today wearing the shirt that I'm wearing. And there is another picture of General Sibiya wearing a similar shirt. And then there is another South African I could not identify. The shirt he's wearing is similar to mine and Sibiya's. So the last picture is yours, wearing gold and black shirt, but not a similar pattern with the 3 of us. So one of them said, Chairperson, can you check with the minister what his comment is about this about this 4 shirts? I know you might have not seen the picture, but you will meet it in social media. Honorable members, I want to thank you so much. Senior Counsel, thank you so much. And thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for answering the questions to the best of your ability. At some point during the proceedings, we had to release Honorable Breitenbach due to other commitments. And Honorable Mncwango and Honorable Vessels will not be able to join us tomorrow. Honorable Mncwango has a committee of parliament which he must chair tomorrow. And we must congratulate Honorable Vessels in advance. He came to whisper to me that he will not be here tomorrow because they are expecting a new bundle of joy. So I said to him that I'm thanking him so much for his positive contribution to population growth in the country. We are coming back here tomorrow. The proceedings start at 11 o'clock. So yes, honorable members, if you may please listen. Honorable Sangoni, Honorable Ntuli, Honorable Shongwe, Honorable Cameron, Honorable Sols are the speakers who will take the platform tomorrow. So,
Honorable James.
Honorable James, yes. So it's going to be a session spanning 6 hours. Yes, it's 1 hour per speaker. We are starting at 11, breaking at 1, and then coming back from 1, run and take 2 speakers, coming back at 2, run to 4, and then 4 to 6. Honorable Sango.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Just clarity. You said spanning 6 hours.
Spanning
6 hours. Each speaker gets an hour, and not all speakers are full members tomorrow. Not all speakers tomorrow are full members. Others are alternates.
Yeah, you are right. We will accordingly readjust. Look, it has been a long day, honorable members. I counted the number of speakers and forgot that there are some speakers who are alternates. But thank you very much for the reminder. I think it's something that is very understandable. So we will accordingly adjust it. Thank you so much.
Shongwe was a very happy beneficiary of that arrangement of the chair.
Fortunately, there is one announcement which you are unable to make. Thank you so much.